Hey, it's our Week 16 recap plus Monday Night Football preview with the New Orleans Saints and the Green Bay Packers. Welcome to the FTN Fantasy Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast featuring one of Santa's elves.
It's a Festivus hat. By the way, folks, just so you know, I fake Aaron out by wearing my normal hat before we go on so he doesn't know I'm doing this. It's like the stumble bum play. I'm doing anything I can to confuse the people around me.
In a moment, we're going to discuss the Philadelphia Eagles' loss to the Washington Commanders, which I believe is perfect for Festivus because Mike has grievances.
Many grievances.
And we're also going to talk rookie quarterbacks and DVOA playoff odds and Monday Night Football and all of that. Don't forget that our show is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, which is the easiest place to play fantasy sports and the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. Underdog now offers a new customer FTN special with up to $1,000 on your first time deposit, so you can play all their weekly contests like the onside kick, the double doink, and the 2-minute drill. Head over to Underdog for a deposit match up to $1,000 when you sign up with code FTN. Up to $1,000 extra. NFL season is in the way. It's happening. It's going on right now. And who better to celebrate with than Underdog Fantasy? I don't want to keep saying NFL season is here because it's been here for 4 months.
Right. Well, it's in full swing. You don't want to say wrapping up either because that's bad for the sponsor. It sounds like it's time to go. There's plenty.
Right. I mean, there's still playoffs coming, man. I mean, there's plenty of good time to play Underdog. In fact, it's probably easier to play Underdog once you get to only 6 games in the week, right?
Right. There's a lot less choices you have to make. And also there's NBA, there's NHL. There's so much to do there.
We will take, of course, your questions and comments if you are watching us live, which we do on 11 a.m. on Mondays and Thursdays Eastern time. And we will be here, by the way, on the day after Christmas and the day after New Year's. So we are doing shows on December 26th and January 2nd. Camden Cap says the Kyle Pitts interception has to be the most Falcons play to ever Falcon. We'll talk about Michael Penix in a little bit, but Penix had a much better game from scouting eyes than he did by the numbers, and part of the reason was Kyle Pitts letting the ball go off his hands.
If he has not broken every fantasy heart in the world by now, that was the last fantasy heart broken when Pitts shot-putted that ball to Flott, Candale Flott.
Yeah. Camden Caps wants to know if Drake May is my favorite Christmas gift this year. Travis Hunter is my favorite Christmas gift this year. Drake May was a Passover gift. He was a spring gift. We got Drake May in the spring. My favorite gift is getting the 2nd overall pick. And yep. I mean, actually, it probably would be even better if they traded down. But if they don't trade down and take Travis Hunter, that'll be very nice. It's good. We're going to have a lot of interesting conversations about Travis Hunter in the spring. Whether it makes more sense for him to be a full-time receiver who comes in dime packages on defense or a full-time cornerback who comes in on third downs on offense.
Right. And I'd go with the former. And there's going to be people out there saying, well, he can play both ways. Guys, think about how NFL meeting rooms work and practices work.
Yeah, he can't play. What he can do is come in, have a package. He could have a package where he comes in on the other side of the ball.
Right.
And the best thing for Hunter and his wallet is to be a full-time wide receiver.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's actually the best position for him. And then, he can be the dime, safety cornerback guy who blitzes a lot and then drops into zones and tries to cherry pick balls and be a heck of a ball player.
So let's talk a little bit about the Eagles' loss to the Commanders. Now, I watched this whole game, and based on the numbers, I kind of got it wrong.
Okay.
I'm surprised the Commanders were so much better than the Eagles in DVOA. Commanders got 64% for this game, Eagles minus 17.
Mm-hmm.
The Commanders had a 44% success rate compared to 35% for the Eagles. So I came away from the game saying, okay, we know Kenny Pickett is not good, but what surprised me was they let Jaden Daniels throw 5 touchdown passes. They allowed deep passes. Oh no, should we worry about the Eagles defense? with the turnover, they ended up having an above average defensive game once you adjust for the quality of the Washington offense.
Mm-hmm.
The problem was much more Pickett.
Yes.
Even though, I mean, yeah, they scored a lot of points, but Washington scored a lot of points in part because they had good field position, because Pickett was good.
Yes.
And the defense did not completely give way. Yes, it wasn't one of their better games, but it wasn't as bad as Carolina a couple weeks ago as far as defensive games. And I think I come out of that game thinking I'm not really extra worried about the Eagles, because Hurts will come back and the defense is not it's not like the defense is crumbling. And yes, Iceman points out the Eagles recovered all 4 of their fumbles on offense. So part of the reason DVOA is unhappy with them is that it assumes that 50-50 fumble recovery, et cetera.
Right. That was a sloppy game on both sides in terms of fumbles. The Eagles had the better fumble luck. When you talk about field position, not only did Luvu intercept Pickett to set up the first touchdown really deep in Eagles territory, Eagles had a couple shank punts. The Eagles kickoffs were not good. I don't know what was going on with Brendan Mann, but they were having a problem there. And yes, there were some penalties, some 15-yard gift penalties that were a little bit inexplicable that the Commanders got. Commanders also had a touchdown where there was a substitution error by the Eagles. Darius Slay was out for a couple plays. He came running back in, realized he was the 12th man on the field, went running back out, and I think he was the guy who was supposed to cover Alameda Zacchaeus on one of those bombs, but he ran off the field. This isn't a criticism of Jaden Daniels in any way, because some of those bombs were beautiful. They were pinpoint passes. One of them came on a play where he reads the blitz perfectly and realizes he's got isolated coverage. I think it was Zacchaeus going up the left sideline with Quinyon Mitchell, playing this sort of.
That may have been the McLaurin one where it really just dropped in the basket for McLaurin.
It was awesome. McLaurin, right? And the read was great. The throw was great. You put a defender in off coverage who I think might have had 2 rolls or might have been covering a third of the field or something like that in a bind in Quinyon Mitchell, and you exploit it. So a lot of that, but yeah. I'm not worried about it's frustrating because you're watching this game and the Eagles are up by 2 scores and they're playing.
And it matters for the number 1 seed. It really hurts their possibility of getting the number 1 seed. Yeah.
Yes. And Hurts' injury, there's no guarantee he's back next week against the Cowboys. And that's a worry because Pickett's game boils down to trying to get DPI balls. And when Pickett's in the game, there's no fear of him. And then you see Saquon get bottled up.
Yes, they absolutely were. Everybody in Washington was in the box.
Yes. And they were gap shooting.
I'm sorry, but Congress couldn't meet yesterday because the entire city was in the box against the Philadelphia Eagles to stop.
They averted a government shutdown. Yes. But they caused a Saquon shutdown.
Saquon shutdown.
It was a Saquon shutdown.
But I'm not thinking the Commanders showed how to beat the Eagles defense. I'm not coming away from that game saying that, and I'm not even coming away from that game thinking the Commanders are any more frisky than I already thought. They're going to probably be the 7 seed.
Yeah.
So they're probably going to meet the Eagles again.
Right.
And if Jalen Hurts is healthy, you would absolutely favor the Eagles in that game in Philadelphia. It
was 14-0, and the Commanders weren't looking good, and it was 21-7, even when Pickett get in the game. And all the red zone failures by the Eagles, you got to figure with Jalen Hurts there, they're not red zone failures. Between his ability to throw the ball, adding a run dimension, creating more fear for Saquon, and tush pushing, there's another Eagles touchdown where there was a field goal.
Yeah, Greg Olsen kept talking about that the Eagles basically start every series with only 9 yards to go. And when you have Pickett as the quarterback, that's no longer the case.
That's no longer the case, right? You lose a yard per 4-play series right off the bat. And you saw it in the red zone. You saw the Barkley Wildcat play. You also saw Devontae Smith drop a pass that would have won the game.
Yes, that would have iced the game.
Right. A pass he catches 49 times out of 50. Weird, fluky. You're right. The Commanders are frisky no matter what, whether they get the Eagles. Yeah, they're not in good position. They're not going to get to go into Atlanta or get to go into LA at this point. But
Camden Cap says, where does Jaden Daniels rank all time in rookie seasons? His beginning pace was insane. This gets to a question that I asked on Twitter yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
or on Blue Sky, on both, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Which is, what if all 6 of the first-round quarterbacks are good?
Impossible.
I don't know where Jaden Daniels' rookie season stands. He's no longer going to have the best rookie season of all time by DVOA or DYAR. That's clear. It's still a very good season.
Right.
All season long, he's been better by EPA than by my stats.
Okay.
And I don't think that that's changed. And they're sort of interesting that that's the way it is.
Right.
Iceman wants to know, is this year better than the 83 draft?
Oh, well, gosh. It's 1
well,
year.
I mean, you got to give it some time.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about the 83 draft. It's possible that this year is wider than the 83 draft, but not, or deeper, but not as strong, right? Like we don't have no idea if one of these guys is going to be Elway or Marino.
Right.
But it's looking like none of them are going to be Todd Blackledge either. Okay, so let's go down. Okay, we'll go through them not by how well they've played this year, but by draft pick. Okay, Caleb Williams has a 14% passing DVOA in the last 6 weeks.
That's really good.
He struggled in the first part of the season, but he has played absolutely better. You point out and walk through today, there is a risk that he is going to get some bad habits.
Yes. And it is Dinky McDuncanstein whenever they can get away with just dropping a screen. They really do it. But, he did a good job in the second half yesterday, kind of like all by himself, trying to keep that. He
absolutely looks like a guy who the situation turned out to not be as good as we thought it was going to be. Right. Odunze is a rookie, and Allen is getting old,
and the coaches are gone. Everyone's gone,
and the coaching situation is wackadoo. But he absolutely shows promise. Like this is you're going to go into next year thinking he shows a lot of promise.
A lot of Baker Mayfield in that there's a drama unfolding around him that is insane that involves the organization. He is super creative out of structure. So, he gets out of the pocket and does all these wild things that are amazing. Has a really good arm. Maybe has a little bit of a prickly personality like Baker did. We haven't heard much of it here, but we heard some of it at USC. So, I think the journey for Williams boils down to who the head coach is next year, whether they keep the parts of this offense that are working, and whether he's put in a position where everything he does isn't either a screen or an emergency scramble and throw before he jumps out of bounds.
Jaden Daniels has not been as good in recent weeks as he was at the beginning. His DVOA passing 27% in the first 4 weeks, 11% since.
Okay.
But still, very good.
Right.
Looks like he's a very good quarterback, right? He's the favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I don't feel like having the Brock Bowers argument right now, but he's the favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
He's minus 20.
And he looks very good. He looks very good.
Really good decision maker, very good runner. Has a good combination of being able to take risks downfield and also checking the ball down, taking what the offense gives him. I don't have a comp in my brain for this guy. He really is that good. And I'm surprised because it looks to me like a Ben Roethlisberger rookie season. It looks to me like a Matt Ryan rookie season, but with more scrambling. And I'm surprised.
Yeah, it is. It's not quite as good as Roethlisberger in an efficiency way, but throwing the ball more than Roethlisberger did. Roethlisberger was helped along by the run more.
Run and defense.
Right? Number 3, Drake May. Yeah. I think when you watch Drake May, does Drake May have great numbers this year? No. Does he make mistakes and throw interceptions in a bit of a gunslingery way? Yes.
Yeah, a little bit.
But given what he has to work with, everybody in New England agrees. They found the quarterback.
Right.
Now they just need to fix everything else.
Literally everything else. And that's a tall order, and it takes time, and you don't want them to get hurt along the way. But we were talking off camera, I think it was last week, about Jared Mayo being mad at Alex Van Pelt. Alex Van Pelt's like, we get to the red zone, we don't want this kid taking risks, or handing off, etc. He's keeping him alive. He's keeping him healthy. Okay. First of all, May does kind of make mistakes at the goal line. Secondly, I was watching plays where Hunter Henry batted the ball to a guy a couple of weeks ago, almost like Kyle Pitts a few weeks back, and I saw guys falling down in the end zone and stuff like that when May's dropping the pass. Keep this kid healthy because, again, he's got the size. He's not developing bad habits because, give or take, what happened in the fourth quarter.
He's very good at sack avoidance, which, given this offensive line, is remarkable.
Yes, that offensive line is horrendous. He avoids the sack. He gets the short passes out. He finds whoever's open, which is often nobody. There's a lot to like. Yeah, it's like Hunter Henry and Kayshon Boutte. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 8. Michael Penix. The numbers are not impressive, but there were a number of drops, especially that interception that bounded off of Kyle Pitts' hands. Everybody who I know who watches from a more of a scouting perspective sent out messages yesterday saying Michael Penix looks good. Like, it's only one game, and yes, it's the Giants defense, absolutely. But everybody agreed. Michael Penix, from a scouting perspective, looked good.
Yes. He got the ball down the field. He converted some third and medium, third and long throws. There wasn't lots of rookie gingerbread nonsense throwing in the system. He wasn't, wide receiver screen. There was very little of that. He was getting helped by the running game and, of course, defensive touchdowns. And it was the Giants, but, he did everything he needed to do to say, while this game was still close, while it was still competitive, I'm getting the ball to Mooney, to London, to Pitts. And when they aren't dropping it, and that happened a couple times, especially early in the games, they were able to move the ball.
Chris Rojas says, now you accept small sample sizes? Well, I didn't say all 6 quarterbacks were good. I said, all 6 quarterbacks were good. What would you rather have from Michael Penix's first game? Bad numbers where everyone's like, Penix has no idea what he's doing out there, or bad numbers where everyone goes, Penix looked a lot better than his numbers, right? It's optimistic. I'm being optimistic here.
Optimistic. And a lot of times I'll look at that, it was the quarterback's first win. And there's so much nonsense in this when you watch it more carefully, a screen for 50 yards, etc. Right. There wasn't a lot of that. Obviously, there's defensive touchdowns that helps them get control of the game. But from a get the ball to a receiver when you have to, third and medium, it's still, 14-10 or whatever you need to make a play. He was making those plays. It was optimistic.
J.J. McCarthy, we have absolutely no idea, but we have to accept he is being put into a very good situation.
Absolutely. He's going to be joining a great team or maybe getting traded to the Browns. Who knows?
Probably not. I still feel like even if they franchise Darnold for a year, they want McCarthy to win the job.
I think that's true. I think Kwesi does not want to spend a lot of money on another quarterback who might be peaking right now.
And then number 12, Bo Nix, passing DVOA weeks 1 to 4, minus 36%. Since week 5, plus 10%.
Plus 10%.
He looks reasonable out there. He's being well managed by Sean Payton. There's no question about it. Not every game is good. No. But again, this could be, right now you'd have to say it's very likely is an average starting quarterback or better.
Yes. Somebody on the radio compared him to Teddy Bridgewater, and I thought that was an interesting comp. It's tough because Bridgewater's leg exploded, and that's why we didn't have anything beyond his first year or two there. But this ball distributing guy who can work well within the structure, runs a little bit, is very competitive, and might need the help of his defense. That looks like Bo Nix right now. But it's absolutely encouraging season. He's got a big game coming up. They got to face the Bengals this week, and the Bengals are still alive, and the Broncos haven't clinched anything yet. So that's a big one coming up.
We usually review the games with reverse post-game win expectancy. There weren't any this week, but there were 2 close ones.
Okay.
The first is Carolina at 57%. Kyler Murray, you wrote about this today, you would expect that Bryce Young would give a game like this away, and instead Kyler Murray gave the game away.
He gives the game away. Early in the game, the Cardinals make a bunch of mistakes in the red zone, a mixture of Marvin Harrison not being able to see the ball in the air and flags and things like that. Panthers take a lead. Cardinals come back. Overtime was stunning, where the Cardinals get the ball to get a first down or two, and then they have this mini meltdown of penalties. There's a pass rush, and Murray starts doing Super Mario stuff in the backfield. He takes a 12-yard sack. There's another penalty, And that wins the game for the Panthers because the Cardinals wind up punting from their 3-yard line or something like that. And they get the ball.
Then just 2 Chuba Hubbard runs, and there you go. That's the
and that's it. And it was, and I don't know if the Cardinals played well enough to win, but like the last 5 weeks of their season have been an absolute debacle.
Yeah, they really looked good 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like the numbers were really good. Like this was the team to beat in the NFC West, and they really face planted.
And as well as Young is playing, that is not a talent-laden Panthers team. I mean, they're playing lights out. You should be able to out-talent them. You should be able to run the ball effectively, find mismatches when J.C. Horn isn't covering the guy, the other guy must be open. And the Cardinals missed that opportunity.
I mean no disrespect to this fine city in which I live. Mm-hmm. But when Jalen Coker is your number one receiving option, there's a talent problem.
Thielen's their number one. But
I guess Coker's like number 2, but still,
he's their downfield guy, yes, and that's a problem.
The other is Minnesota at 55%. You'll see Minnesota drops a little bit in weighted DVOA because that game with Seattle was very, very close.
Very close. They needed a big play by Justin Jefferson at the end, coming off of a little bit of a penalty assist too, with a face mask penalty at the end, and then the Seahawks missed an opportunity late in this game because they're driving downfield to get into Vikings territory. Geno takes a sack. They attempt a 60-yard field goal. They get the ball back. They still have 1:05 to play. Geno just kind of spits out an interception. DK might have run the route. I'm not sure. Vikings secure another victory. And this one, it was a tough road victory. But you're right. They didn't play phenomenally well. Darnold took a couple sacks.
It really looks like we set up for Seattle's their playoff odds are only like 10 or 15% at this point. We really look like we set up for Minnesota, Detroit as the Sunday night game in week 18, where the winner gets the 1 and the loser gets the 5.
And that's wild. And we also have a big one because we have Minnesota versus Green Bay. And Green Bay, you said, are the number one team.
Super hot. We'll get to this in a little bit when we preview Monday Night Football. Over the last 6 weeks, Green Bay is the best. Of course, they only played 5 of those 6 weeks. They're the best team in the league.
Right. And, of course, they're 2 games behind the Vikings, although they play tonight. Still, that's a big one. Big NFC North showdowns down the stretch here.
We'll look at the weighted DVOA top 12. San Francisco and Houston dropped out. Rams 12th.
Moving up there.
Just Pittsburgh drops a little bit to 11th.
That's about where they belong, I feel.
Chargers 10.
All right. Big win on Thursday.
Kansas City up a little bit to 9. Kansas City's 3rd, 4th, and 5th best games of the year are the last 3 weeks. This may have been another 1-score win, but it was not really a 1-score win. First of all, Hunt easily scores if he feels like it at the end of the game, so it's really a 2-score win. And this was not like the Raiders or the Broncos where weird stuff happens at the end. This was Kansas City controlled the game.
Controlling the game against a tough opponent.
Yes. This was a good Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes led the league in passing DYAR this week.
That's amazing.
This was a good performance for Kansas City.
That's amazing because I think every pass went 6 yards in the air at the most.
Yeah, well, Houston's got a good defense, and Minnesota 8.
Surprisingly low, but again, I wrote about some of the things they'd get with penalty advantages and all, and it was a tight win.
Washington up to 7, although that's juiced a little bit by being able to play against Pickett.
Okay, yeah, but still, hell of a game.
Denver 6.
Still high.
High. And yes, Michael Allen Brewer wants to know, were we cheering the free kick? The free kick was awesome.
It was just a punt. It's just a punt through it's just a punt.
Camden Caps points out the Vikings went from a team everyone said was overrated 2 years ago to legit Super Bowl contenders while changing quarterbacks. What can teams learn from what the Vikings have done? I think the first is hire a really good defensive coordinator.
Good. And
make targeted signings on defense.
Targeted signings. Get a GM like Kwesi who can manage his way out of a cap problem and can finesse a situation where a couple of years ago they had a very over-the-hill defense. And they were flukes 2 years ago. Let's be honest, that wasn't a strong team. But like sort of recognize who needs to go, who can kind of like a Harrison Smith who can still have value, and how you can change these horses on the fly.
Bill Houston said the Vikings get ousted in the first round, and I think I disagree because there's a good chance that the Vikings play Tampa Bay or Atlanta in the first round.
Yeah, they're going to smoke Atlanta by 63 points.
The top 5 teams, there's a gap between the top 5 teams and everyone else.
Okay.
Buffalo 5.
Yeah, they looked sloppy yesterday. I mean, it was a good.
They looked sloppy.
Yeah. Yeah, they're discombobulated, fumbling, making mistakes, penalties. It was not good.
And I realized that, yes, it was cold and their running game was working really well. So they certainly didn't need Josh Allen to take over, but that was not a good game.
No, he did not play particularly well.
And in my mind, the fact that it was a regional telecast does not mean that game matters less than a national telecast.
Here we go. Captain Contrarian.
The opposite is true for Lamar Jackson. Just because Lamar Jackson this week was on national television doesn't mean that game matters more than a regional telecast.
Captain Contrarian is here to screw up your MVP unanimity, folks.
Philadelphia 4.
Hanging in. Like you said, it wasn't a bad DVOA game, or it wasn't a terrible DVOA game overall.
Weighted DVOA has Detroit now 3rd.
Wow.
In total for the season, they are 2nd.
I'll say this: they gave up. They should have smoked that team in the first quarter. They settled for field goals. They spent the entire second half with a 2-score lead, risking a catastrophe.
This is 4 straight games with below average defense.
Yeah, and it showed yesterday. I mean, they got a couple of turnovers. I mean, the Bears were constantly in this situation where it's 4th down and whatever, and they have to go for it in the second half. But they're going for it like in Lions territory, and they're driving into Lions territory.
I'm not happy about this because I'm not hiding the fact that I am rooting for this team.
Right.
But the defense they hit the limit. They hit the limit a couple weeks ago. The limit on the injuries.
Luckily, they're making up weird playground plays just to keep themselves interested on offense.
Number 2 in weighted DVOA is Green Bay. Now, someone pointed out to me on one of the social medias when I said about Green Bay, some of Green Bay's rating is that they beat San Francisco when San Francisco was missing Purdy and Bosa.
Yes, that's true.
But still, they are the best team in the league since week 11. I thought the Ravens would be.
Right.
Because the Ravens are now the 3rd best offense and 3rd best defense since week 11. The Packers come out as the 2nd best offense and the 2nd best defense since week 11. And yes, that's only 5 games because they haven't played tonight yet. But still, they are playing very well.
Right. They did get the 49ers in a bad spot there. Had a Dolphins team that had everything to play for. Yes, it was cold. You got to play in the cold, guys. And they smoked them. And they smoked the Seahawks pretty handily. Again, the Seahawks were a team who had everything to play for in that game. Plus, they had a nip and tuck battle with the Lions.
And number 1, DVOA's favorite,
the
Baltimore Ravens.
Who showed you what happens when Lady Luck is not ticked off at them.
And when they only have 2 penalties.
Only 2 penalties. Their only dropped interception I saw was like on 4th down and 20 in the end zone where it's like, drop it, please drop it. Like it actually helped them. And Tucker was able to kick a 50-yarder in a cold weather and things like that. You see what they're capable of when they're not in their own way.
Right. Same problem with the Ravens that I've had for weeks now, which is if they don't win the division,
yes,
I have a really hard time imagining that they can put 3 of those good games together on the road without having one of these games with all the penalties and turnovers and stuff.
Right. Going into Arrowhead and hoping penalties go
as good as they are when they're good.
Right.
The inconsistency makes me really feel, but I mean, if they go to Kansas City in round 2 as the 5, that could be a real problem for Kansas City.
Fate has been tempted, and fate does not like the Ravens.
We'll see. Monday Night Football is the Saints at the Packers. I went looking for reasons to believe in the Saints with Spencer Rattler at quarterback, and there really aren't any. The line is 14. Right now, the Packers are the 5 seed in 33% of sims, the 6, 39%, and the 7 and 28%.
Right.
And that mostly assumes they win tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, once you're like sort of, I guess, avoiding the Eagles, which is what we would think at this point, it's a toss up of whether you want I guess no matter what, you want the NFC South team because the Rams are playing pretty well.
Yeah, I would think you want the NFC South team. Even though Tampa Bay is reasonable, I think that's what you want. Right. The Saints are 30th against the run. So given the cold, that it's going to be very cold tonight, God, I got to think Josh Jacobs just goes a lot of carries.
Jacobs with a lot of carries, and they'll probably do a little RPO stuff.
Like I play the Emmanuel Wilson overs, honestly. Like
that might.
They're just they're not going to want but they're going to end up with a lead in the cold, and they're going to not want to run Jacobs all the time. And Emmanuel Wilson, like. Here's an interesting stat, by the way. The Saints are the number 1 defense on passes up the middle.
That's just random.
27th and 26th against the sides. I do not know why that would be, because it's not like the Saints you go safety play. Or,
right, no.
I mean, Demario Davis is good, but you don't go like, oh, Fred Warner's in the middle. Like,
no, right.
That's a kind of wild stat.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens tonight. Love is good in every direction, so that's
very good in every direction. I don't know. Maybe they're just bad in the flats. It might just be an artifact. Sometimes these things are artifacts, especially for bad teams. No snow tonight, so it won't be a snow game or like.
Just cold,
just cold, so we don't get like the fun of the snow game. And like Rattler has nobody to throw to. Okay, maybe this is the Marquez Valdez-Scantling revenge game that we all circled because the Packers. But
it could be, and they'll still lose by 3 touchdowns.
It could still, right, exactly. There is no, I don't think there's any Kamara tonight. There's no Taysom. Olave's been out for a long time. Dante Pettis is one of the go-to receivers right now in New Orleans.
Yes. So I like the Packers -14, and I like the under 42.5 because it's going to be cold.
I'll take that under. I do not do 2 touchdown spreads in the NFL, but I'll do that under.
All right. That does it for today's show, kids. We will be back on Thursday to talk about the 2 Christmas games. We're actually going to have 2 games to break down, 2 very good Christmas games.
Yes.
And then we will preview week 17 in the NFL. So be there at 11 a.m. Eastern on Thursday. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Happy first night of Hanukkah.
Yes. Yippee-ki-yay.
Happy Festivus.
Yes, for the rest of us.
And we will see you on Thursday morning for the NFL, FTN Fantasy NFL podcast. I'm Aaron Schatz. He's Mike Tanier. So long. Happy holidays. Peace out.